FaceTime Live on PB31 and the 21. Welcome. My name is Denise Yitzi, and today I have my great friend Heather Edwards. Hi, Heather. Today I just wanted to, we want to do a follow-up based on a message I did a few weeks ago called Calm in the Chaos. Or From Chaos to Calm. And Heather actually had watched that video, and she gave me some awesome feedback. But I felt like it was important for her to be able to share. I want to give a little quick backstory for Heather and I and our relationship. So Heather is like one of the most powerful, strong, independent women that I know. She is so smart. She just stretches and grows and never allows status quo to be good enough ever. And in the season that we really started to build our friendship, I got to meet with her. We had coffee, and at that moment, nothing about her paradigm was saying that to her. She was so frustrated. She was so like, and from that moment, I was just like, girl, like, okay, we got to do something about this. Like, what, because it was like what we talked about the other day. It's like, what is it? It's kind of like, it's everything, and it's going, okay, is it really everything? Like, let's break it down. And so she did. She went home and she got out her journal and she really compartmentalized. These are really the things that it's been. These are really things I've allowed, because she wasn't in that position. She'd always been the one in control and taking charge and doing it. And at that season and phase, it didn't look like that. And so she made some decisions and some choices that really put her on a path to not just survive, but to thrive. And so from there to now is like so awesome just to see what you've accomplished from then to now. So anyway, I just love her so much. I'm so glad she's here. So Heather, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? Like, you didn't tell them about Jonathan and anybody, so just tell them a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I've been married almost 19 years. Yeah. July will be 19 years to my high school sweetheart.
True.
And we have 3 beautiful girls.
Yes.
7th grade, 4th grade, and 1st grade. Okay. So 12, 10, and 7. Yeah. What else about me? I have a finance and economics degree, and I started a career in banking, commercial real estate banking. So really a real estate side, but connecting it with banking. Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
We're very successful.
I was very successful. I loved every single day of work. And I just really enjoyed that. There was a huge piece of who I am and what I wanted to be. And my mom was a career woman, and she set that example for me.
Yes.
And I naturally went in that direction, and I have a lot in common with my mom. And I really enjoyed that piece of my life. Yeah. Do you want to go into the whole? But during that banking time, when the crash happened in 2009-ish, I had to get out of banking because they closed down my bank, and I was having babies. So I took a step back, and we'd made enough money that we could live on just my husband's police officer salary. Totally fine. I was good with it, right? Could take a little season of change. Knowing it was just a short season, and thinking it was just a short season, and then we had a tragic event happen in our life. My husband was shot in the line of duty as a police officer, and that was a whirlwind, a complete whirlwind, completely out of our control. But it caused a lot of chaos in our home, and my husband had some mental, some PTSD type stuff that lasted for quite a while. Mm-hmm. And we really had to work through that. And that one thing, though, was a ripple effect that caused a lot of other challenges. Yeah, it was a negative domino effect, caused a lot of other challenges in our life. And we refused to give up. I think that's the biggest, because I'm over that now. Okay. We are past that point. Right. We're on the other end of it. And I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable here. I'm still not at a place where I say I'm okay that happened to us. Right. Because honestly, I wish it wouldn't have. Right. I would have rather had it an easier way. I'd rather have learned all the lessons that I've learned through it an easier way. Yes. But I can't really say right now I'm glad that happened to me, or I'm okay with it, or I'm grateful. Right. I'm just being honest. Like I don't quite feel that way yet, right. But I know one day I'll get there. That's and I'm working on that.
That's good.
But I am still able to pull a lot of good out of it.
Yeah.
Especially with my people skills, my ability to connect with people, my ability to care for people, my ability to understand people and just meet them where they are.
Yeah.
I feel like because a lot of people did that for us during that season
that's good.
when we were probably toxic and chaotic and out of control and couldn't see past ourselves and our current circumstances. So
Yeah.
we're
Which
still
is kind of symbolic of what's happening right now in some people's lives, right?
Absolutely.
The chaos that's
Absolutely.
been created in current events causes that kind of spiral. I think the word that you said is so good. It's like a tornado goes through, and you're just like, okay, where do we even start to pick up the pieces? And yet, so from then till recently, in recent history, you got your real estate license.
Yes, so I finally got to go back into real estate. This has been 10 years now, and so I finally have got to go back into real estate,
Which you love.
which I love. I'm obsessed with real estate, and I always have been. And that was some of the tension I felt too. Is like, I want to go do something I love, but honestly, I just really can't right now. My family needs me. My husband needs me. I cannot put another thing on my plate, but I really, really, really want to do this because it was such a big part of my identity.
Yeah.
And my family needs the money too. Like I know I can help provide for our family. So it was always this like tug.
Yeah.
And I'm finally now at a point where I get to go back to real estate.
Yeah.
I get to do what I love. I get to help provide for my family.
Yes.
And I get to thrive, and I get to use all the things that I've learned over the past decade with my people skills,
Right.
and all the things that I've learned as far as how to be successful and how to overcome obstacles and just how to care for people and talk to people. So now I get to use all of those things. So I'm back in real estate. I have been for a while
And you're
now.
back. You're back. Like you're not.
I'm back.
Yes, which is exciting because that was the part that was kind of like when you know strong people. It's different when you see them because they're always the ones picking everybody else up. They're always the ones that people go to for advice, and so it is weird when people like that and people like us get off because it's kind of like, okay, now it's really like you're just not you. Let's do this. So you watched the Chaos to Calm video.
Yes.
And you loved it. You were excited. But I wanted you to just share, one, how it spoke to you overall, but then a few specific things that were takeaways for you. Because I know you said, yeah, I'm doing that, I'm doing that, I'm doing that. So it spoke to you from the aspect like that works. When you do those things, it works. So why don't you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the number one takeaway for me, which is something that I have been able to do to some degree, is taking care or taking time for myself. I've always been into fitness and health, and I've always been able to take care of myself that way. I've been reading tons of books to help myself mentally. And here's the thing. When I'm in real estate, and when the COVID-19 coronavirus thing happened, the first thing that happened, nobody wants to buy houses, nobody wants to sell houses unless they have to, for multiple reasons, okay, outside of my control.
Right.
So all of a sudden, I'm not showing as many houses.
Okay.
My phone isn't ringing as much as it used to.
Right.
And the thing was, what I did is I took the good habits, the things I did have control over, and I exemplified them.
Okay.
Now I have more time for these things. Right? So it's not necessarily that I created new habits, although I support people doing that.
Right.
It was a time for me to go, okay, now I can really focus on what's within my control.
Right.
Like as far as taking care of myself. So I tried to find the positive things in that. For instance, I can take care of myself now because I don't have a commute. So I can get up, and my kids don't have to be on the school bus at a certain time. So I can get up and I can spend an hour working out every single morning without fail because I now have more time.
Where you're not sitting in a car doing
I'm not sitting in a car commuting. I don't have my kids' bus schedules, two bus schedules to affect my schedule or to put, in my time blocking or whatever.
Yes.
So I just tried to pivot that way a little bit, which we'll get to, but taking care of myself is huge. I have to continue to take care of myself. I have to continue to cook healthy meals. I have to continue to work out.
Right.
I have to continue to read my books.
Yeah.
And stay focused on whatever my goals were for myself mentally,
Right.
and what I wanted to learn. So I just had to continue doing those things.
Right.
And we'd even talked about the news thing. This
Yeah.
is big when it comes to taking care of yourself
That's good.
mentally. Okay, I cannot watch the news. I never really have been a news watcher, but I do like to be connected on what's going on politically because
Right.
it's very important.
Yeah.
Because it does eventually trickle down to us, and I do
Right.
care about more than just myself.
Yes.
So there are certain political things that I do care about,
Right.
and I want to be a voice in those things because
Yeah.
I want to contribute to the
whole-
overall, and people that cannot speak for themselves, I want to be a voice for those people.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I could not watch the news.
Right.
I tried to get my source, and I still do this, from press conferences, straight from the White House,
Right.
as much as possible, and then I just let it be.
Turn it off. Right.
I turn it off and I go back to what is going on in my life right now.
Yeah, so I love some of the things that you said because I think it's one thing for us to say, take care of yourself. But for a
Yes.
person who is always externally focused, you know, it's taking care of everybody else. Even though that is not a bad thing, it's a great thing, and it's a wonderful ambition. It is that if it's all outward focused, we talked about this on the video, you don't have it to give. So you gave some really practical example, and that's the benefit of what Heather said, is what Heather said is not just for Heather. It's going, okay, taking care of yourself means you make healthy meals, you adjust your diet, right? You just don't sit home with a bag of chips and soda now that you're home every day all the time. It was one thing in the beginning when we were bored and stress eating, but now that you realize that this timeline is not going to be a short one, it's going to be really implementing those types of habits, which I talked about meal planning, and I'm going to actually do a video on that, like meal prep and having an actual list on the fridge of what it looks like that week, which is such a great habit, but it also positively impacts other good dominoes. Physically taking care of yourself, which is what you talked about. Spiritually is sharpening. Have a quiet time. Pray. Whatever it is that like refills that tank for you. Read books. I'm with you. We read a lot of books, and I listen to a lot of Audible.
Yes.
And you're just staying sharp.
Yes.
Because that is something that's in your circle. So taking care of yourself is a critical factor, but also one of the things I want to encourage them is it shouldn't make you feel guilty. It shouldn't make, like
right.
before you had been sitting in the car away from them anyway, so why does it matter if you're taking 15 minutes now to do it, or just say to your husband or your significant other or whatever that looks like to say, hey, give me 5, like just give me a minute to, and it's been interesting because I even did a online like fitness video with somebody that's doing virtual classes, and in the background of one, because it was a Zoom meeting, there was this mom and her toddler came walking in, and you hear the dad come to the door, and she's like, I'll be done in 5 minutes, but it was like so cool to go, but you're doing it, you know what I mean?
Yes.
You're doing it in life, you're having that. And in that, it creates so many other dominoes, because when you gain that sense of control, when you utilize those practical things, it strengthens the whole muscle. It's kind of like you do any kind of exercise, it's still strengthening your heart. So it's strengthening you to allow the other things that we talked about. So what was another?
Yeah, I was going to say this too. I have 3 girls.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly reminded that whatever I do, they're watching, they see,
Yeah.
and they will do too.
Yeah.
So I have a goal as far as reading, and I get my book and I ask my girls, what book are you reading? What book are you reading? Go grab your book. Go sit down and read your book.
That's
And
good.
now it's like we're all reading a book at the same time. Nobody's bothering me.
Yeah.
And I am set, nobody's bothering me, but at the same time they're reading too. What book are you reading?
That's so good. It's not just you, it's the...
Yes. One of my girls is reading the Bible. The other one is reading a book on the Titanic. And my other one's reading a library book about some make-believe book about frogs because she's
Yeah.
only in first grade.
Right.
But the point is, this is our time to read. Look at what I'm doing. Y'all go ahead and do it too.
That's so good.
So
so
don't
good.
forget that they do see what we do and they're a reflection of us.
Yes. That's awesome. That's so good. All right, and then you had another takeaway you mentioned?
Yeah, my other takeaway was the word pivot. And a couple of things that I've heard over this whole coronavirus thing started with my broker. And he said it's easy to win and it's easy to go fast when the road is straight.
Yeah.
And we've had such a straight road for so long.
Yeah.
right? Now the road is starting to curve. And the number one thing we can do is recognize the curve.
Yeah.
Don't ask why, what, how, why me?
Yeah.
This doesn't make sense. I don't agree with this.
So good.
Like, just go, it is pivoting.
Yeah.
We are curving.
Yeah.
The faster you accept that and faster you start curving
Adapt. Yeah.
and adapt, the more you're going to get out of it.
Yeah.
And the quicker you're going to get out of it.
Yes.
Because around a curve is another straight.
Yes, that's good.
And then another guy I listened to on his podcast, he said, do not allow this 4, 5, 6 weeks
Right.
of your life
Right.
determine the 10 years.
Yeah.
We cannot next year go, but that 6 weeks,
Yes.
I'm not doing this because of that 6 weeks.
so good.
This is a blip,
Yeah.
and this is the opportunity for us to learn something,
Yes.
and it's going to pivot again.
Yes.
You know, but right now that pivot might be hard.
Yes.
What can we get out of it?
Right.
What can we do with it?
Yeah.
So we can get out of it quicker.
Quicker. Yeah, to maintain the momentum. Yes, you may have
Yes.
to pump the brakes, but it doesn't mean that you hit the wall.
That's
Yeah,
right.
and it was interesting because I think last night, I don't know that I said that before, but I talked about in Your Best Year Ever, which you and I read that book too, was that's what he talked about is pivoting. And if you really think about that word, it's like you're running down the basketball court, right? And you come into the defender, and rather than allow him to stop you, you just pivot. You just
Yes.
stop and turn and go around and
That's
find
right.
another way.
That's right.
Rather than going, this is happening and I don't know. It's just like, okay, what can we do, right? That's really kind of the principle of pivot is you don't stop. You figure out another way, right?
Yes.
And it may take a minute. It's not going to be
That's it.
instantaneous. Some are faster than others, right?
Mhm.
Because you did have to adapt your whole schedule when you had to stay home and teach the kids,
Yeah.
right?
I
Those
would-
types of things.
Yeah, I want to give a practical too to this pivot because people
Yeah.
are probably like, I get the concept, whatever. So here's what I did. I'm in real estate, right?
Right.
Most of our business, almost all of our business, is based off of referrals and people we know, our sphere of influence, our circle of influence.
Yeah.
And what we had to do is, I've had to start cold calling. I don't want to cold call. Never had to cold call. Okay? But I started to cold call for sell by
That's
owners.
good.
And I started to cold call expires. And here's what I did. I said, this is an opportunity for me to put a new
Sure.
tool in my
That's
toolbox
very good.
that I've never had to do before.
Yeah.
So I took a 3-hour course to
Yeah.
learn from somebody who does it well. I got the scripts
Yeah.
and I started reading and repeating the scripts, reading, repeating, and go, my foundation is I am a servant leader.
Yeah.
I'm going to call for sell by owners, I'm going to call expireds, and I'm going to say, how can I help?
Wow.
How can I help my community?
Yeah.
These are special times. Everybody's showings,
Yeah.
people that are buying, has gone down.
Yeah.
I'm a professional. I have tools and resources. How can I help
Thank
you
you.
for free? Let me give you a little tool or nugget that can help you. And that has been my approach.
That's so good. That's
And
a
now
good
I'm learning a
example.
new tool, and I
Yeah.
don't want to pick up the phone. I'm so nervous every single time because I'm afraid of rejection. But I'm like, I've never had to do this before,
Yeah.
and I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I see that so many times in right now in corporate America because same thing. I'm in a networking group in an environment where it was always face to face. It was always shaking hands. It was always passing business cards, and obviously in this environment you can't. And so our pivot was, we'll go to an online platform, which I had already had Zoom. I had already stretched last year to put those things in place and to expand your sphere of influence without having, especially in Atlanta, to make the commute and do that. So it was a pivot for our team, but to have had that in our toolbox, I was able to be a spearhead to go, great, we can do this. This is how we do this. Same thing. There were people that were overwhelmed and intimidated and so I did individual calls, got them up to speed, and it was so awesome because the first meeting, we had 31 people, and we had 100% attendance. And they all nailed it. It was
Yes.
just like, you did it, right? But it's through that filter of, oh, we can't. I love what the lady that is in charge of our Power Core here, her name is Wendy, meaning in Atlanta, and she says, don't make long-term decisions in temporary circumstances.
You got
like,
it.
Don't do it. Don't be reactive like what we talked about last night. Be proactive to recognize, yes, this is where I am, but these are the steps I can take at this moment, but I'm not going to make, like you said, this is not 6 years. It might be 6 weeks. It might be 2 months. But in this, don't make long-term decisions based on a short-term temporary circumstance. So I
That's
thought
right.
that was really powerful.
And just taking life one day at a time.
Yeah.
I can't look at what's going to happen next. I'm just got to focus on my habits today, knowing that they will pay off.
Yes.
Habits every day, good habits
Yes.
every day.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's
it.
all I got to do.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so your next
Okay.
one you told me was
Well, I took time for myself
Yeah.
and the pivoting concept.
Oh,
so
good.
these are the two, those are the
Those
two
two big
biggest
ones.
takeaways.
Yeah.
For me, I've already been a good time blocker.
Yeah.
So I've already been blocking out my time. I've noticed though
Yes.
that when I block out my time now,
Mhm.
I seem to have a little extra time left over.
Yeah.
And I love it because I get to feel that with my kids.
Yeah.
Because they're all homeschooling now.
Yeah.
3 kids homeschooling. So if I have that extra window, I get an extra 30 minutes. I get to go to my little kid. Okay, come. What do you need help with?
Yeah.
Let me explain something to you. Because they've been waiting for me. Because
That's
I've been
good.
working. I've been on
Right.
the phone.
Right.
You know, they've been waiting
Yeah.
patiently.
Yeah.
And so I get to take those extra little snippets
Yeah.
and fill in my kids.
Yeah.
And nobody feels overwhelmed
Right.
about it.
So you and I talked about really quick. So last night I held up the circle with all the, and Heather's like, you need to hold it a little. So this circle, which is actually, basically this is like a circle of deception. And the reason I'm saying that is because it's based on perfect balance in your life, right? And I think this is one of the things, that we want to talk about is there is no such thing as perfect balance. There isn't. It's a deception, right? Because there's going to be seasons and times in your life, like right now, where you are going to have to spend more time at home and you're going to have less time that you have to be at work. If your work has closed down and you're home, even though you're doing the right things, it's still not that your phone's ringing and disrupting dinner. It's still not, right? So really a more realistic picture of what your life is going to look like is this. And it's not going to look like that all the time. But if you notice, there's one piece of that pie that's bigger, right? And if you don't have a family, this is the one I covered last night with all the physical, vocational, avocational, all those 9 things. That's kind of like your life score. The truth is you may not be in a season right now where you're parents. So that piece of the pie comes off. And that makes the 100%, it gives it a little bit more room in every other place, right? If you concentrate on volunteering or you spend a lot of your free time there, then that piece of the puzzle, which may be avocational, is bigger, right? Or that piece of the pie. But to think that you are going to live your life in balance every day, all the time, you're not, okay? And so in that, it was interesting because I did this with Heather right before she walked in. And I know you can't see these, but over here there's a total column, like 10%, 10%, 10%. Well, the truth is if you're trying to maintain balance and you think you still have to force all these other things in at that ratio, and this one starts to take up that much pie, the percentage here went over 100. And that made it makes you feel overextended, right? So pay attention to that. If you are feeling stress, if you are feeling pressure, especially now that you have had margin, now that you realize what it is, not to run to the beat of everybody else's drum banging, you have to go to practice, and you have to do this, and you have to do that. Like really use this time to evaluate, do I have to put every single one of those things back on my plate? Are those things still a priority? Because the truth is, there's like a spiritual principle that God's grace is sufficient for us and his strength is made perfect in our weaknesses, which means there's going to be stuff we're doing that's hard, but it's still God. Just because it's God does not make it easy all the time, right? Like I think about what you guys went through.
Yes.
It was like, okay,
Yes.
did he allow that? Yes. Is his grace sufficient? Yes. Was it easy? No. Do I ever want to go through it again? No. And in that piece of the puzzle, did it, not puzzle, but pie, did it shrink a whole bunch of other pieces? It did, right? But to think that if you're not in perfect balance and somebody has put that in you and you've bought that as the truth, it's not true. There's going to be seasons in your life where pieces of the pie are going to look like this and other pieces are not going to be there at all. Or they're just going to shrink, right? Because there's only so much of you to go around.
Yes.
That you have this much battery. If you can think about it like a cell phone battery, right? You only have so much battery. That's where the recharging, that's where the taking care of you becomes so critical.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, your battery's dead and you're running on empty and people are still trying to draw on you and pull out. And so in that, I think that was one of the things I wanted to touch because last night, even though I crammed all the 9 into one video, we're going to take some time over the next several weeks where we break out those pieces. What does that really look like? How do I create margin? How do I create structure? We talked about the time blocking last week, and I think you and I even had started that when your life was all running together, you know, because you couldn't, everything was in the same place kind of every day.
I felt like I was out of control of my schedule.
Right. And
You know,
then
it was
you
always
went,
like somebody
no,
else's emergency was now
my
my emergency, no matter how much I
tried
tried to schedule myself
Yeah.
and set time aside for myself.
Yeah. And so that was a practice that you have put in place that even now you're being able to hold and maintain because it's a habit, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that too. I wrote this down, so I think this is a good time to say it. We're not creating rules for ourselves.
Right.
I think that's important. There's no rules. Really, what there are is we're creating routine, we're creating boundaries.
That's good.
We're creating routine and boundaries, routine and boundaries.
Yeah.
So those were the 2 words I wanted to stick with and I wanted to communicate.
Yeah.
It's not rules. We're not creating rules.
No.
We're creating routines
Yeah.
and we're creating boundaries.
Yes, that's good. And when you have those, I think that's the critical piece of this season, and the cushion that we've been given is really what are the boundaries we want, because when they are boundaries, like what you do with your kids, mom's working, and when I'm at work, even though I don't leave, I'm work. Like work is work, and then school is school, and then quality time is quality time, which is also boundaries. Because if you are setting that quality time with your kids or your husband or any, like what we're doing now, that's the boundary. It's an appointment. It's just like at the doctors. They don't. It's not like they double book and layer and layer and layer. It's going, no, that's the boundary, right? The block for that time.
Yeah.
And be true enough to yourself and others. I mean, I'm not saying being rigid, right? If something comes up and you need to, but when that becomes the habit that we allow other people's priorities to crowd into our boundaries, it creates resentment, right?
Absolutely.
And that's not what we
Absolutely.
want. Oh, so I think that is important. Anything else that you would share?
I like, this was in your message last night, or your watch party thing.
Yeah.
Responsibility is what's happening in us.
Right.
We are responsible for what's happening in us.
Yes.
And I just wanted to point that out, in us. We are not responsible for necessarily, we cannot be responsible for everything happening outside of us
right.
or to us,
Right.
but we are responsible for what's happening
Yeah.
in us. And it's a practice.
It is.
It's not something that we're naturally born to know how to do.
No.
And it's not something we'll ever be perfect
Yeah.
at, but keep practicing
Yeah.
working on what is in you.
Yeah, and that was the neat thing. I remember I got that on a quiet time one time when God was like, your responsibility, and he literally put that hyphen, is your ability to respond to what's happening to you.
Yes.
So it's responsibility. But you have to recognize that, like you said, and use that muscle rather than just living life like you're on the ocean with no rudder.
Yes.
And every wave and every agenda and everything that comes in becomes the it's what drives you. Whereas, because that's all outside, it's the responsibility is recognizing, okay, yes, that's coming. What do I do with that? How am I emotionally first responding, right? Because out of those emotions create reactions. And then again, putting those priorities, that what we talked about, the proactivity, it's not going to be perfect. You and I just talked about it.
Yes.
It's not going to be perfect, but at least if you have a plan, you just don't feel like everything is out of control and I don't even know what direction to go. And so it's just creating those practical things, which, like I said, in future videos, we're literally going to go, okay, just like Heather said, this is what that looks like for me. It looks like I do my exercise, I read my books, it's creating those habits for yourself and then being true to them and recognizing that's not a bad thing. So let's see, if you could if people want to connect with you on social media and find, because I know you have lots of great content in different places, how can they connect with you?
I'm on Facebook, Heather Edwards. I'm pretty easy to find because I have this long brown hair. And because there's probably a lot of Heather Edwards, but and then Instagram,
Okay.
Heather_Edwards_realtor.
Okay, good.
All right, but I really do a lot of stuff on Facebook. I really like Facebook. But I guess that's how you connect with me.
Okay,
Is
good.
that-
Yeah, if
is
they
that
want
good?
to, that's
Yeah.
exactly right. And then if you could say like one last thing to those watching across the table, how would you encourage them?
How would I,
to move forward in this and out of it, right? Go get the rest of the way through it and out of it. How would you encourage that?
Yes. Take all the lessons that you can out of this season. Every lesson you can, take it out of this season to propel you forward into the next season. We are not going to be here very long. We really aren't. But we are still in control of what happens. So do not sit back and wait for this to pass. Find out what you can do right now to help yourself and to help others.
Yeah.
All right, stay off social media as much,
Negative,
negative social media, the social media for the news, just don't go there.
Right.
Don't go there to the news.
Right.
Okay, focus on your today.
Yeah.
Focus on what you are in control of.
Yeah.
It does not have to be perfect. It just has to be better.
Yeah.
And spend your time on activities that move the needle in the direction that you want to go. That's all it is. Moving that needle a little tiny bit every single day.
Yeah.
Love yourself. Be kind to yourself.
Yes.
Don't overjudge yourself. The faster that you can bounce back from a mistake, the more successful you're going to be.
Yeah, that's good.
We will get through this.
Yeah.
I think that's my biggest message that I want to tell people, and don't let it affect you next year, 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Get the lessons that you can from it and be better for it.
Hit the gas again when you clear the curve.
Yes.
I like
Yes.
that very much. It's like, okay, it's okay.
Yes.
All right, really quick, we talked about like last night, I said those 9 compartments, and what I would say is if you can go back, it was called Friday Night Live, go back and watch that and pick 1 or 2 of those compartments, like what Heather said. Pick whether it's your marriage at this moment, whether it's the quality time you're investing in your kids, whether that's personal development. Pick one. But I wanted to show you a book that we've both read, but I would absolutely recommend. This is called The Slight Edge, because it's one thing to talk about picking a habit and doing it. If you've noticed, like, willpower is a deception too. Like, if it's not really in here, if your mindset isn't even in there, it's not going to work. But the truth is, so many of us, because of the times and seasons that we live in right now, we think we can magic wand, just like wave and it's going to be better. Drive up to a window, it should be there. Like, everything is instant, and it's not instant. It is figuring out what that one thing is that you can do, and like Heather said, practicing it every day. I'll give you one for example. So I've wanted to learn Spanish for like as long as we've known each other. And so I downloaded the Duolingo app, and I'm now like on my I'm over 80 days in a row, right?
Nice.
And am I like fluent? No, but like as I'm going back through the lessons, like it's coming, it's going okay. That takes me 10 minutes a day, right? But are we willing to block in those 10 minutes? If we say this is what we want, then we have to put actions in place that allow us to experience those things. So just like Heather said, be the best you, figure out what that is, find one thing, don't work on everything, just work on one thing so that you're not overwhelmed. And I would say that's my encouragement too, is we're gonna be so much better on the other side of this if we will implement these principles and practices, because they work. They just work. And so let's allow this as an opportunity to reevaluate and assess and cut some stuff off and come in later, ready, sharper, to hit it and run with it. So anyway, we're going to close in prayer. Do you want to close in prayer?
No, you can, but I do want to say one more
say
thing.
one
Hold
more
on.
thing.
This is something that I'm learning. So maybe this is a topic for another day.
Good.
But I think this is important for people that are like me. I am a type A driven.
Yes.
I am going to win and succeed, and I'm going to find a way.
Yeah.
I've always been that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's be kind to ourselves, and the concept is to try a little bit softer. We don't have to white knuckle everything, and I hope that gives people permission that are watching. We don't have to. If you're like me, we're driven. We do not have to white knuckle everything. We don't have to force
Help them know what white knuckle is.
everything. White knuckling is like forcing your way through. I'm gonna my way through. And that's like a bulldozer.
Yes.
Move out of my way. Here I come. I don't care what disaster I make.
Yes.
I'm gonna get there.
Yes.
And we cannot live that way.
Right.
So just trying softer. And the one thing that I just told you was the whole, when you fail, can you just get over it and move on?
Yeah.
Maybe the phone call didn't go the way you want to. Maybe that conversation didn't go the way you want to. Learn from it real quick. and move on and have the conversation again or try again or something. So that's kind of what I wanted to say to my other fellow type A,
I
driven.
get it.
Just, this is not a time to white knuckle. We have to be a little bit softer, especially with other people.
Yeah.
And ourselves.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, there we go. Closing prayer.
It's awesome. God, I just thank you so much for this time with Heather. Lord, she is such a gift in my life. Lord, I believe that you are the God of supernatural intersections, and I pray for those that are watching, Lord, that they would be able to have takeaways from this time, God, to see the drive and the energy and the life, God, and the progress. But God, to recognize, like I said, it's been 2 years, Lord, to see that you can come from that valley and you can make it to the mountaintop one step at a time. And so, Lord, I just pray that you watch over your word. Oh, we pray that you are going to use this for your glory, that it's going to go out into social media, God, and women, not just in the next few days, but in the months and years to come, God, will glean from this to recognize that, Lord, it doesn't have to take a national disaster to create chaos in our lives. It can be something individually, just like what happened to Heather, that Lord makes us feel that sense of loss of control, God. And so we just pray that you are using this for your glory. Lord, I thank you for every person watching that is not experiencing peace at this moment. I pray peace that passes all understanding to dwell on their heart and mind. I pray for wisdom to show them what those steps are that they can take for such a time as this, God. Those little baby steps that they can take, God, if they repeat over time, will create those habits, will create that energy and that momentum they need for their lives, legacies, destinies, and generations. And so, God, we just trust you that you've been here with us and that you're going to use it for your glory. All right, guys, so thank you, Heather.
You're welcome, Denise. Thank you for having me.
And so I want to say, you guys are the biggest advocate for PV31 and the 21. It's one like and one share at a time across the table and around the world, and you are the only ones that can help us do that. This will be uploaded to YouTube with a couple links, and I'll actually put Heather's Facebook link in the YouTube content so that you have it. But thank you again for coming, and have a great, successful week.